The black SUV stopped hard on the gravel road, throwing a cloud of dust into the morning air. When the door opened, a man in a dark coat said flatly, "She's all yours." From the back seat, Rose Wren stepped down carefully, the metallic brace on her right leg locking with a soft click. The air was cold, sharp with the smell of pine and horses. A tall man waited by the gate of Hale Ranch, his skin dark, his expression calm. "You're not cargo," Jonah Hale said. "You're a person." The driver gave a short laugh, tossed a clipboard onto the hood, and drove off, leaving the two of them in the silence of the open land. For a moment Rose stood still, holding her breath. She had been a CEO once, headlines, cameras, speeches, but now she was just another body being delivered somewhere out of sight. Jonah opened the gate with one hand and motioned for her to follow. Inside the main house, the smell of wood smoke and coffee mixed with the sound of a radio playing softly in the kitchen. A gray-haired woman looked up from the stove. "You must be Miss Wren," she said warmly. "I'm Eunice. Sit down, sweetheart. You look like the wind could carry you off." Rose sat stiffly at the pine table, unsure how to answer. Eunice poured her coffee without asking how she took it. "Around here we just serve it black. Life's too short for cream and sugar." The line almost made Rose smile. Jonah set a folder in front of her. "This is the program. Mornings you'll do physical therapy. Afternoons, equine work riding, balance, coordination." She pushed the folder away. "I'm not here to ride horses. You're here to get better," he said quietly. "That's what I'm paid for." "Paid by my uncle," she replied, voice dry. "Doesn't that make you his employee?" Jonah's eyes didn't waver. "I work for whoever wants to walk again." That night, Rose lay awake in the small cabin they'd assigned her. Through the window she could see the dark outline of mountains. A photograph on the nightstand showed Jonah in a firefighter's uniform, one arm around a smiling woman. Widow, she thought. It was written in the way he carried silence. Her phone buzzed once. A message from Curtis. "Settle in. Keep quiet. We'll talk soon." She set the phone face down and stared at the ceiling until sleep finally came. In the morning she woke to the smell of bacon and the sound of horses. Eunice greeted her with a plate of eggs and toast. "Eat," she said. "You'll need it." "For what?" "For living, darling." Outside, the sun hit the frost on the fences, turning everything silver. Jonah waited by a brown mare saddled and ready. "Her name's Grace," he said. "Fitting," Rose muttered. She tried to step closer, but her legs stiffened, refusing to move. "I'm not doing this," she said. "Yes, you are." His tone was calm but final. "You don't need to get on her today. Just stand." Rose frowned, but she faced the horse anyway. The animal's breath came in slow clouds. Her heart pounded. One step. The brace clicked. Another. Pain flared down her leg, but she stayed upright. The horse shifted, patient. "Good," Jonah said. "Don't help me," she snapped. "I'm not." He folded his arms, watching her. "I'm just making sure you don't quit before you even start." She wanted to hate him for his steadiness, but the truth was, it steadied her. She stayed there another moment, hand on the saddle, breathing hard, until her body remembered balance. That night, Eunice brought her a slice of warm apple pie. "You did good today," she said. "You took a step." Rose shook her head. "A step isn't much." "Maybe not," Eunice said, smiling. "But around here, honey, we measure progress in inches, not miles." When Eunice left, Rose sat by the window again. The wind had quieted. In the distance, she saw Jonah walking the fence line with a lantern, the light moving like a heartbeat through the dark. She didn't know why, but it made her feel safe. For the first time in months, she didn't feel like something broken waiting to be discarded. She felt like someone who might find a way to stand again. The morning after her first attempt at standing, Rose woke to the soft knock of rain against the cabin window. The valley below Hale Ranch was wrapped in fog, and somewhere in the distance, a horse whinnied a reminder that the world, unlike her life, kept moving. She sat up slowly, her legs stiff, her body heavy from the effort of the day before. On the nightstand lay the folder Jonah had given her, still unopened. She'd meant to read it, but she couldn't bear to face another list of expectations. It felt strange to be somewhere that smelled of earth and rain instead of antiseptic and ambition. In New York, her mornings had started with emails and boardroom calls. Now they began with silence. Eunice arrived without knocking, carrying a tray of oatmeal, eggs, and a cup of steaming coffee. "Morning, sweetheart. You sleep at all?" "Some," Rose said, pushing her hair out of her face. "Well, that's better than none. You'll need strength for therapy." Eunice placed the tray down and gave her a long, searching look. "You've got that same stare my Jonah had after the fire, like the world betrayed you, and you're daring it to try again." Rose said nothing. Eunice sighed and touched her shoulder gently. "Eat, then go outside. The air here knows how to mend people if you let it." When she left, Rose forced down a few spoonfuls, though her stomach rebelled. The rain had eased into a soft drizzle by the time she limped to the stable. Jonah was already there, tightening the reins on Grace. He didn't greet her right away. Instead, he nodded at the open folder in her hand. "You finally read it." "Most of it," she said. "It's thorough. That's how healing works, step by step." She raised an eyebrow. "Or inch by inch, according to your mother." He smiled faintly. "She's right about that more often than I am." Rose leaned on her cane, watching him work. "I've read about your program. Equine-assisted therapy, right? It's supposed to help people with trauma. Trauma, balance. Trust," he said. "Horses know who's lying. They don't move for fear." "Then I'm in trouble," she murmured. Jonah didn't respond. He handed her the reins. "Let's see if Grace believes you." The mare's eyes were calm and intelligent. Rose reached out, hesitating before touching her neck. The horse exhaled softly, warm breath against her palm. "She's bigger up close," Rose whispered. "Most things worth facing are," Jonah said. They didn't push her far that day. She walked beside Grace for 10 minutes, then 15, her brace squeaking in rhythm with the horse's steady steps. The air was cold enough to sting her lungs, but something inside her loosened a small thread of resistance, snapping quietly. Afterward, Jonah said nothing about progress or determination. He simply took the reins from her hand, nodded, and led the horse away. In the silence that followed, Rose realized how long it had been since someone allowed her to try without measuring her success. That night, she returned to her cabin and found a package on the table. Inside was an old paperback, Man's Search for Meaning. A note was tucked between the pages in Jonah's blocky handwriting. "You can't control what broke you. You can only choose what you become after." She set the book down, staring at it for a long time. The words unsettled her, not because they were untrue, but because they were exactly what she needed to hear. Later that evening, her phone buzzed again. The signal was weak, but Curtis's message came through clear. "I trust you're settling in. I'll check on your progress soon. Don't forget who's signing the checks." She read the message twice, then deleted it. The world of New York, the boardrooms, the polished lies, the contracts felt impossibly far away, and yet his words reached her like a chain across the miles. A few days passed. The fog lifted, revealing the ridges of the mountain like a painting come to life. Rose began each morning at the stable, walking a little farther each time. Jonah's patience was unnerving. He never raised his voice, never offered empty praise. Sometimes he'd hum, while adjusting the saddles, old gospel tunes that floated through the crisp air. It reminded her of her father before he died, a man who'd believed hard work could fix anything. One afternoon, after a particularly long session, she caught Jonah watching her with that quiet intensity she was beginning to recognize. "What?" she asked. "You're not dragging your leg as much today. That's hardly an accomplishment." "It's movement," he said. "Movement is how people heal." She looked away, unsure how to respond. "Do you really think this ranch can fix me?" He shook his head. "I don't think you're broken." The simplicity of it disarmed her. For a moment, neither spoke. The mountains loomed in the distance, blue and endless, and Rose felt something inside her unclench just a little. That evening, she joined Eunice for dinner again. The older woman was making stew, humming to herself as she stirred. "So," Eunice said, glancing at her, "Jonah tells me you didn't fall today." "Barely," Rose replied. "Still counts." Eunice ladled soup into bowls. "You know, people think healing is about strength, but it's really about forgiveness. Not for others, for yourself." Rose frowned. "I don't see what forgiveness has to do with nerve damage." "Oh, honey," Eunice said softly, "it's got everything to do with it." After dinner, Rose wandered outside. The sky was a deep velvet blue, stars glittering above the barn. The horses shifted restlessly in their stalls, the soft sound of hooves like a heartbeat under the earth. Jonah was there again, lantern in hand, checking the locks. "You always patrol at night?" she asked. "Old habit. The land's quiet then. You can hear what it's trying to tell you. And what's it saying tonight? That peace takes work." She nodded, thinking about that. "Jonah," she said after a pause, "why do you do this? The therapy, the ranch, helping people like me." He looked toward the horizon. "Because once, someone stood beside me when I thought I was done for. Thought I'd return the favor." "Your wife?" she guessed. His jaw tightened just slightly. "Yeah, she believed in rebuilding from ashes." "Did she?" He nodded before she could finish. "Fire didn't take her pain, it took her. The rest is mine to carry." Rose didn't know what to say. The wind blew between them, cold and tender. "I'm sorry," she murmured. "Don't be," Jonah said quietly. "Some losses teach you what love actually means." When she returned to her cabin, she found herself thinking about his words more than she wanted to. Love is endurance, not rescue. Maybe that was what she'd been missing all along. Before she turned off the lamp, she took out her phone again, not to read Curtis's messages, but to type one she'd never send. "You can take everything, but you can't own what I decide to fight for." She deleted it, closed her eyes, and for the first time in months, dreamed without the sound of screeching tires. In the morning, she would wake early, ready to try again. And though she didn't know it yet, each step on that rough Montana soil was leading her closer to the truth that would change everything. If this moment touched your heart, if you've ever known what it feels like to fall and still find the courage to rise again, leave the number 1 the comments below, and tell us, if you were in Rose's place that night, what would you have done? Don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss more powerful stories like this. The next morning dawned sharp and clear, the kind of Montana morning where the sky looked too wide to hold anything but truth. Rose stood by the corral, gripping her cane as sunlight broke through the clouds. Jonah was already there, brushing down Grace, his movements quiet, methodical. "You're early," he said, glancing up. "Couldn't sleep," she replied. "The air here doesn't let me." "That's not the air," he said. "That's your conscience waking up." She wanted to argue, but he wasn't wrong. Every day she felt something shifting inside her, like an old wound remembering what healing felt like. He motioned toward the mare. "We're going to try something different today." She hesitated. "Different how?" "You're going to ride her." The words hit her like a punch. "I can barely walk." "You can walk. Barely doesn't mean never." She looked at the horse, then at him. "And if I fall? Then you'll know what falling feels like, and you won't be afraid of it anymore." Jonah adjusted the saddle, his voice low and even. "You don't have to do this. You just told me I was going to. I said we'd try. The choice is yours." He stepped back, waiting. Rose took a breath, the air thin and cold in her lungs. The idea of climbing onto that animal terrified her, but something about Jonah's steady stillness gave her courage. She gripped the saddle horn and tried to lift her leg. The brace resisted. Her hands trembled. Jonah said softly, "Stop thinking about your leg. Think about your balance." "Easy for you to say," she muttered, but she tried again. He placed his hand lightly at her waist, not to lift her, just to guide her. She swung her leg over, awkward but determined. For a heartbeat she sat frozen, every muscle locked. Then Grace shifted, and she gasped. "She's moving," Rose said, panic in her voice. "That's the point," Jonah replied, his tone calm as the sky. "She's not going to hurt you." "How do you know?" "Because she trusts you." The word startled her. Trust. It was something she hadn't heard in months, maybe years. Slowly, the fear began to fade. Grace's steps were slow and rhythmic, the motion rocking through her body like a forgotten lullaby. The pain was still there, but it felt different, alive, purposeful. When they stopped, Rose realized her face was wet with tears. Jonah looked up at her. "You did fine." "I didn't fall," she whispered. "You didn't. It doesn't feel real." Most real things don't at first. He reached for the reins, his gaze steady. "That's enough for today." As she dismounted, her leg almost gave out, but she steadied herself before he could move to help. "I've got it," she said. He nodded once. "I know." That evening, Eunice served roast chicken and mashed potatoes, humming to herself as she set the table. "I hear you rode today," she said. "Jonah can't keep his mouth shut." "He's proud of you," Eunice said, smiling, though he'd never say it out loud. He doesn't strike me as the type to be proud of much. He's proud of people who fight, Eunice said softly, because he knows what losing looks like. After dinner, Rose stepped outside. The sun was sinking, turning the sky gold and violet. Jonah was sitting on the porch, sharpening a knife. She stood beside him, unsure how to start. "I wanted to thank you," she said finally. "For today. You don't owe me thanks. Then what do I owe you?" "Nothing. Just honesty." She frowned. "Honesty about what?" "Why you're really here." She looked away. "You know why." "Because Curtis sent you?" His voice had no accusation, only curiosity. "Because you agreed to be sent?" She didn't answer. The question hung in the cool air like a truth she wasn't ready to face. "I didn't have a choice," she said quietly. Jonah kept his eyes on the knife, the steady scrape of steel against stone filling the silence. "There's always a choice. Sometimes it's just hard to live with the one that's right." Rose felt anger rise, then fade just as quickly. "You don't understand," she said. "You've never had someone take everything from you." He looked up at her, his eyes dark and unflinching. "You'd be surprised what I've had taken." She remembered his wife, the fire, the photo on the mantel, the words caught in her throat. "I'm sorry," she said softly. "Don't be," he said again. "Pain's just another kind of teacher." She wanted to ask what it had taught him, but he stood, sliding the knife back into its sheath. "Tomorrow, same time," he said. "And Rose, try not to think about what's behind you. The past has enough ghosts without you feeding them." He walked toward the barn, his shadow stretching long across the dirt. Rose watched him disappear into the dark, her thoughts a storm of questions she couldn't yet name. Later, as she sat by the fire in her cabin, she pulled out her phone again. No new messages. She almost missed the constant demands, the ceaseless noise of her old life. Almost. She scrolled through her photos: a charity gala, a product launch, Curtis beside her with his politician's smile. There was one image she lingered on, her father, long before he'd died, standing beside her at the company's first office opening. "You were born to build, Rosie," he'd said, "not to be built by others." She stared at the photo until her vision blurred. Then she opened the folder of legal documents she'd brought from New York. The power of attorney form stared back at her, Curtis's signature bold and triumphant beside hers. She traced her name with a trembling finger. For the first time, she saw what she hadn't before: how neatly he'd trapped her. It wasn't just greed, it was control. He'd wanted her silent, small, hidden away where no one would ask questions about the accident. She closed the folder slowly, her heart pounding. Maybe she'd been sent here to recover, but something told her there was more to it. And if Curtis thought she'd stay quiet, he didn't know her as well as he believed. A log popped in the fire, sending sparks up the chimney. Rose leaned back, her reflection flickering in the glass window. Somewhere out there, beyond the black fields and dark mountains, Curtis Yarrow was still moving pieces she couldn't see. But for the first time in months, she wasn't just surviving. She was watching. She was thinking. And she was beginning, quietly, to fight. The morning light crept slowly through the thin curtains, touching Rose's face with the faint warmth of dawn. She woke to the sound of rain again, steady, rhythmic, as if the mountain itself was breathing. For a moment, she lay still, eyes on the ceiling, feeling the dull ache in her leg. It wasn't pain anymore, not exactly. It was more like a reminder, a pulse that whispered, "You're still here." When she stepped outside, Jonah was already by the paddock, fixing a loose plank on the fence. He looked up briefly, rain dripping from the brim of his hat. "You're up early," he said. "Couldn't sleep." "Good," he said. "We'll put that energy to use." She smirked faintly. "You always this cheerful before sunrise?" "Cheerful?" He raised an eyebrow. "That's not what people usually call me." "What do they call you?" "Depends on the day." There was a flicker of humor in his eyes, quick but unmistakable. She noticed it more often now, those small cracks in his quiet facade. He worked without rushing, movements efficient, deliberate, like a man who trusted his own rhythm. Rose watched him for a while before finally saying, "I think I'm starting to like it here." "Careful," Jonah said. "That's how the mountain gets you." "Is that what happened to you?" He didn't answer, just tightened the last nail and stepped back to inspect his work. "You ready for therapy?" "As ready as I'll ever be." That morning he didn't bring Grace. Instead, he led her to the training barn where a series of low obstacles were set up, We're focusing on control, he said. Not strength. Your body already knows how to move. You just have to trust it. You make it sound easy. It isn't. He stood beside her, explaining each movement, each balance shift. At first, she stumbled, frustrated, the brace catching on the uneven ground. But Jonah didn't step in. He watched quietly, hands at his sides. You're going to let me fall? She asked. If I have to, he said. Sometimes falling's the lesson. She exhaled sharply, annoyed, but kept going. Sweat gathered at her temples. The sound of her uneven breathing filled the barn. Every time she faltered, Jonah's calm voice steadied her. Again. I can't. Again. Jonah, my leg. Again. Finally, when she managed to step across without losing balance, she stopped, chest heaving. There, he said softly. That's what winning looks like. You call this winning? It's standing when you could have stayed down. That's victory enough. She stared at him for a long moment, her throat tight. You really believe that? I have to. They locked eyes briefly, something unspoken passing between them, understanding maybe, or the fragile beginning of trust. After the session, he helped her sit by the paddock fence, and for a while they just watched the horses graze. What did you do before this? She asked. Before the ranch? I fought fires, he said simply. The kind that don't leave when the flames die. That sounds poetic. It's not. Sometimes it's just a fancy way of saying I ran from things I didn't want to face. And now I build fences, he said. It's quieter work. Rose smiled faintly. You're a terrible philosopher. Good, keeps me humble. The afternoon passed with a strange calm. She found herself helping Eunice in the kitchen, chopping vegetables while the older woman hummed gospel tunes. The smell of stew filled the house. It reminded Rose of home before her father died, before Curtis turned her name into a transaction. You've got good hands for cooking, Eunice said. My assistant used to say the same thing, Rose said absent-mindedly. You had an assistant? 2, actually, and a driver, and a PR team, and I still never felt like I had time to breathe. Eunice laughed softly. Money doesn't buy air, honey. It just buys nicer walls to suffocate in. Rose smiled at that, but her chest tightened. That night, she sat by the window again, watching lightning crawl across the sky. The mountains looked alive, shivering under the storm. Her phone lay on the table, the screen dark, but she could almost feel Curtis's presence in the silence like a shadow she hadn't shaken off. She turned it on. Dozens of unread messages blinked to life. Board wants update on your recovery. Press asking questions. Don't speak to anyone. Another one. Remember the confidentiality clause. You signed it. Her hands clenched around the phone. She read the words again and again until they blurred. A knock at the door startled her. Come in, she called. Jonah stepped inside, the smell of rain following him. He held out a small thermos. Tea. Helps with pain. You always deliver tea to your clients? Only the ones who argue with me, he said dryly. She accepted it, the warmth seeping into her hands. Why do you do that? Do what? Care about people like this. Because someone once cared enough to keep me alive, he said simply. The least I can do is return the favor. She looked at him for a long moment, the light from the lamp carving soft shadows across his face. You really think I can walk again, don't you? I don't think, he said. I know. Something inside her cracked then, small but irreversible. You're infuriating, she whispered. You're healing, he said. Big difference. When he left, she sat alone for a long while, sipping the tea. The storm outside softened into drizzle. She reached for her journal, the one she hadn't touched since before the accident, and began to write. Not about business or recovery goals, but about what it felt like to breathe again without fear. She wrote until the ink smudged and the candle burned low. The next morning, when she returned to the barn, Jonah was already there. You ready? He asked. For what? For the next step, she tilted her head. You never said what the next step was. Didn't want to scare you off. He handed her the reins to Grace. We're going outside the fence today. Rose froze. Outside? Trail's flat. Weather's good. You'll be fine. She looked at the open land beyond the paddock, the hills, the sky stretching forever. You sure about this? No, he said, grinning slightly. But that's never stopped me before. So she climbed into the saddle, her leg trembling, her breath uneven. The world opened wide around her: wind, grass, the faint smell of pine and rain. Jonah walked beside her, one hand on the reins. "Don't look down," he said. "Look where you're going." "That's the problem," she said softly. "I don't know where that is anymore." "Then just keep moving," he said. "You'll figure it out." They rode in silence for a while, the sound of hooves steady and sure against the earth. When they stopped at the ridge, she looked out over the valley. It was vast, wild, alive, and for the first time in a long time, she didn't feel trapped. She felt small, yes, but free. Jonah turned toward her. "You see that?" "What?" "That's what strength looks like, knowing you can fall and still choose to stand anyway." She met his gaze, her heart beating harder than it should have. "You talk too much," she said. "Maybe, but it's working." And for the first time, Rose laughed, a sound rusty from disuse but genuine. The wind carried it across the hills, light and defiant, like a promise to herself that she wasn't done yet. The sky over Hale Ranch turned the color of pewter that morning, heavy with clouds that promised rain. The air was sharp, the kind of cold that made breath visible. Rose pulled her jacket tighter as she stepped outside, her brace clicking against the wooden porch. She was stronger now, she could feel it in the way her body moved, no longer rebelling against itself but learning, reluctantly, to trust again. Jonah was by the barn, feeding the horses. He glanced at her, a faint smile playing at the corner of his mouth. "You're up before the sun again." "Old habits die hard," she said. "Or maybe I'm just trying to prove something." "To me?" "To myself." He nodded, tossing a flake of hay into Grace's stall. "That's the only one that matters." The wind picked up, rattling the tin roof. Mabel barked once, her ears pricking toward the far pasture. Jonah frowned. "Storm's coming," he said. "We'll move the horses inside." They worked side by side, a silent rhythm between them. The rain began as a drizzle, then quickly turned into a downpour. By the time they finished, both were soaked. "Inside," Jonah said. "You'll freeze out here." "I'm fine," Rose protested, but her lips trembled as thunder cracked in the distance. He gave her that look, the one that wasn't a question but a command, delivered quietly. She followed him into the stable, shivering. He poured coffee from a thermos and handed her a cup. "You're stubborn," he said. "I was a CEO," she replied. "Stubbornness is part of the job description." "Is that what you miss?" he asked. "The job?" She hesitated, the question catching her off guard. "I miss knowing who I was," she said finally. "Back there, my world made sense. I worked, I fought, I built something. Here, I just exist." "Existing isn't a small thing," Jonah said. "For some people, it's the hardest thing to do." She studied him for a moment, the steam from the coffee curling between them. "You sound like you've done this before." "I've seen people lose more than money and titles," he said quietly. "Some never found their way back." "And you?" He looked out toward the rain, his jaw tightening. "Still walking the road back, I guess." The sound of the storm filled the silence that followed. Then, somewhere in the distance, a sharp metallic clang echoed through the wind. Jonah's head snapped up. "Stay here," he said. "What was that?" "Probably a gate," he said, already moving. "I'll check. I'm coming." "No, you're not," he said firmly. But she was already following him, her limp slowing her pace but not her resolve. They stepped into the storm, rain slashing sideways. The wind howled through the fields. Jonah reached the north paddock first, his flashlight cutting through the dark. The gate was swinging wide open, chain snapped clean through. Grace was still inside, pacing nervously. "That's not weather damage," Jonah muttered. "What do you mean?" "Someone cut this." Rose's stomach twisted. "Who would—" A movement caught her eye, a shadow slipping behind the hay shed. "Jonah," she started, but before she could finish, something crashed hard against his shoulder. He stumbled forward, the flashlight clattering to the ground. A figure lunged out of the dark, swinging a metal rod. "Jonah!" she screamed. He turned, catching the attacker's wrist, but another blow came from behind, striking him in the head. He dropped to one knee, dazed. Rose ran forward, heart pounding, slipping in the mud. "Stop!" she shouted. Grabbing the first thing, her hand touched a wooden rake and swung wildly. It connected with a dull thud. The man cursed, retreating into the rain. For a split second, lightning lit up his face, young, pale. unfamiliar. Then he was gone, swallowed by the storm. Rose dropped beside Jonah. Blood streamed down his temple, mixing with rain. "Jonah, look at me," she said, voice shaking. "Jonah!" His eyes fluttered, unfocused. "Grace," he murmured. "The horses. They're fine," she said, pressing her hand against the wound. "You're the one I'm worried about." Her fingers were slick with blood. She shouted for help, but her voice vanished in the wind. It felt like hours before she managed to half carry, half drag him back toward the house, her legs screaming in protest. Eunice met them at the door, gasping. "Lord Almighty, what happened?" "Someone attacked him," Rose said. "Call the sheriff." "Already on it," Eunice said, running for the phone. They laid Jonah on the couch, his breathing shallow but steady. Rose sat beside him, trembling, her clothes soaked and muddy. The storm raged outside, lightning flashing like camera bulbs across the windows. When the sheriff arrived, an older man named Briggs, he looked tired, skeptical. "You say someone attacked him?" "Yes," Rose said. "2 men, maybe 1. I didn't see clearly." "Strangers?" "I think so. They ran when I hit one." Briggs took notes, glancing toward Jonah, then back at her. "You're sure this wasn't an accident? Wind, debris, something like that?" Rose glared at him. "You think I don't know what I saw?" The sheriff raised a hand. "Just asking questions, ma'am. You've been through a lot. Sometimes people lie to make things easier," she cut in. "But not tonight." He sighed. "We'll look into it." He didn't sound convinced. When he left, the house fell quiet except for the rain. Eunice cleaned Jonah's wound, shaking her head. "This wasn't random," she said softly. "Somebody meant to hurt him." Rose sat back, her heart still hammering. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. She almost ignored it, then froze when she saw the sender. "Curtis Yarrow." The message was short. "Stay focused on your recovery. Don't get involved in things you don't understand." Her blood ran cold. She stared at the words, then at Jonah lying unconscious beside her. He had nearly died tonight. And Curtis, her uncle, her supposed guardian, was warning her to stay quiet. Not asking, warning. Rose deleted the message, her hands shaking. Eunice touched her shoulder. "Honey, you all right?" "No," Rose whispered, "but I will be." She stood, wiping rain from her face. Through the window, the storm was beginning to break, the sky splitting open to reveal the first pale streaks of dawn. The land was soaked, the air heavy with the scent of mud and blood. Something inside her shifted then, not fear this time, but fury. She looked back at Jonah, his chest rising slowly under the blanket. "You saved me," she murmured. "Now it's my turn." Outside, the wind carried the faint sound of distant thunder rolling toward the horizon. Rose didn't flinch. She had been silent long enough. The hospital in Silver Pines was small, built more for broken bones and farm injuries than for head trauma, but it was the only one for 50 miles. Rose sat in the corner of Jonah's room, her clothes still damp from the storm, watching the slow rise and fall of his chest. The monitor beside his bed beeped in steady rhythm, a sound that at once comforted and tortured her. His face looked pale under the fluorescent light, a thin bandage wrapped around his head. "He's lucky," the nurse had said. "A few inches deeper, and it could have been worse." Worse. The word echoed in her head. She rubbed her hands together, staring at the small cuts on her knuckles from the fight. The image of that man's shadow flickered in her mind, sharp and terrifying. Curtis's message still burned in her memory. Don't get involved in things you don't understand. But she understood enough now. He'd sent her here to disappear, to keep her quiet, and now someone had come after her and the one man who stood in his way. The door opened softly. Eunice stepped in, her face drawn but steady. "He's sleeping," she said, voice low. "The doctor says he'll be out for a while, but he'll live." Rose exhaled, relief breaking through the tightness in her chest. "Thank God. Thank God. And that hard head of his," Eunice said, managing a faint smile. Then her eyes shifted to Rose. "You should rest, honey. You look like you've been through a war." "Maybe I have," Rose murmured. Eunice sat down beside her. "You gonna tell me what really happened out there? You wouldn't believe me if I did." "Try me." Rose hesitated. She wanted to protect Jonah, but she was done protecting Curtis. "Those men didn't come for the horses," she said quietly. "They came for me." Eunice didn't react, just waited. Rose continued, her voice tightening with each word. "They cut the gate, waited for us to come out. Jonah got in the way. They hit him. One of them said something about making sure I stayed put." "Stayed put?" Eunice frowned. "Like your uncle wanted?" Rose met her eyes. "Exactly like he wanted." Eunice sighed, rubbing her temples. "Lord help us. That man's got no soul left, only greed." Rose looked toward Jonah. "I think he knows too much now, and that makes him a target." "So do you," Eunice said softly. "What are you going to do about it?" Rose's hand tightened around the edge of her chair. "I'm going to find proof," she said. "Something to make Curtis answer for what he's done." Eunice gave a slow nod. "Then you'll need help, and you won't get it from the law in this town. Sheriff Briggs, he's on your uncle's payroll, always has been." Rose's stomach sank. "How do you know?" "Because in towns like this, rich men don't need to hide their sins, they buy people to forget them." Eunice stood and placed a hand on her shoulder. "You stay close to Jonah. He's the only one I trust with a spine strong enough to stand next to yours." When Eunice left, Rose turned back to Jonah. His face was peaceful now, almost too still. She reached out, brushing a strand of hair from his forehead. "You saved me," she whispered. "You didn't have to, but you did." Her throat tightened. "Now I have to save you too." The next morning she borrowed Eunice's old truck and drove back to the ranch. The air smelled of rain and pine, fresh and cruelly calm, as if nothing had happened. The barn door hung slightly off its hinges where the fight had taken place. She stood in the mud, staring at the place where Jonah had fallen, her heart hardening with each breath. Inside the barn she began searching. The hay was damp, the floor stained with dark patches of blood and rainwater. She found nothing at first, no footprints, no tools left behind. Then, under a pile of straw near the back wall, she saw something glint. She knelt, brushing the straw aside, and pulled out a small, mud-caked cell phone. Her pulse quickened. It wasn't Jonah's or hers. The screen was cracked, but intact. She pressed the power button, no response. Dead battery. She slipped it into her pocket and left. Back at the house, she plugged it in using her charger. The phone flickered to life, revealing a lock-screen photo of a man she didn't recognize, young, hard-eyed, wearing a security uniform. She tried several random passcodes, all wrong. She was about to give up when she remembered something Curtis always said during board meetings. "The best passwords are numbers that only matter to you." She typed in his birthday. The phone unlocked. Her stomach turned cold. There were messages, dozens of them, some deleted, others still visible. Most were from a number she didn't know, labeled CY. The latest message read, "Make sure she never walks again. If he interferes, handle it." Rose's breath hitched. Her vision blurred as she scrolled down, finding more. "Payment after confirmation. She's at the ranch. You know what to do. Don't leave loose ends." She dropped the phone onto the table, her hands shaking. It was Curtis. It had always been Curtis. Every doubt she'd buried after the accident came rushing back: the faulty brakes, the contracts, the power of attorney. He hadn't just taken her company. He had tried to take her life. And now Jonah's blood was on his hands too. She backed away from the table, her chest tightening. For a moment, she couldn't breathe. Then, slowly, she picked up the phone again and began recording the screen with her own. Every message, every detail, every timestamp. When she finished, she deleted nothing. Curtis would expect her to hide. Instead, she was going to expose him. The rain started again, light and cold against the windows. She sat in the dim kitchen, staring at the two phones side by side. One belonged to the man who'd tried to kill her. The other was hers, the one Curtis still texted, still controlled, still believed was his leash around her neck. She smiled faintly, the first trace of real defiance she'd felt in months. "You made one mistake, Uncle," she whispered. "You forgot I know how to fight." She hid the evidence in a tin coffee can in the pantry, beneath a layer of sugar. Then she grabbed her coat and drove back to the hospital. When she entered Jonah's room, he was awake, his eyes half open and groggy. "Hey," she said softly, relief flooding her. "You scared me." He tried to smile but winced instead. "You look worse than I do." "Liar." "What happened?" he asked. "Last thing I remember is the rain." "You were hit," she said. "You saved me. Again." He frowned. "Did they catch them?" "Not yet." She hesitated, then added, "But I found something." She told him about the phone, the messages, the proof. He listened, eyes darkening with every word. "You think your uncle sent them?" "I know he did." "Then you need to take this to the police." "No," she said quickly. "Briggs is compromised. Eunice told me. If I hand it over now, it disappears." Jonah studied her for a moment, then nodded slowly. "So what's the plan?" "I go public," she said. "I'll take this straight to the press. Curtis built his world on reputation. Let's see how he likes watching it burn. You'll make yourself a target." "I already am." Jonah leaned back, wincing. "Then you're gonna need help." "I have you," she said simply, "if you'll stand with me." His eyes met hers, steady and sure. "Always." For a long moment, neither spoke. The monitor beeped softly, steady as a heartbeat. Outside, the rain kept falling, washing the world clean, even if just for a little while. Rose looked at Jonah, pale, bruised, alive, and felt something fierce and certain take root inside her. This wasn't just about healing anymore, it was about justice. And she would not stop until the man who tried to destroy them both was the one left bleeding. If this story touched your heart, hit subscribe and stay with us for more heartfelt journeys, stories of falling, rising, and finding strength again. By the time Jonah was discharged from the hospital, a week had passed. The mountains around Hale Ranch were coated with the first shimmer of winter frost, their peaks gleaming beneath a pale blue sky. Rose drove him home slowly, the truck's heater humming, the tires crunching over the frozen dirt road. He sat beside her, still pale, one arm bandaged, his gaze steady on the landscape. "You didn't have to play nurse," he said quietly. "I didn't," she replied. "I chose to." His lips curved faintly. "You're getting good at choices." She kept her eyes on the road, but inside, something fluttered uncomfortably close to warmth. "Don't get used to it," she muttered. When they reached the ranch, Eunice was waiting on the porch, arms crossed, a wool shawl wrapped tightly around her shoulders. "About time you two came home," she said, though her eyes softened when she saw Jonah. "You look like you wrestled a bear and lost." "More like two bears," Jonah said dryly. "But one of them ran." Eunice's gaze flicked to Rose. "And you, honey? You holding up?" "Trying to," Rose said. "We've got a mess to clean up." "That we do," Eunice said, nodding toward the kitchen. "Come in. You both need food and sense, in that order." Inside, the fire was crackling, the smell of stew filling the small house. Rose helped Jonah ease into a chair while Eunice ladled soup into bowls. The quiet comfort of the moment felt almost wrong. "I found something while you were out," Rose said finally. "Something that changes everything." She told Eunice and Jonah about the phone, the messages, the proof that tied Curtis directly to the attack. Jonah's jaw tightened as she spoke. "You're sure it's his number?" "Positive. I memorized it years ago, back when I thought he was family." "And the accident?" Eunice asked softly. Rose hesitated. "There's a message dated 2 days before it happened. It says, 'Handle it cleanly. No mistakes this time.'" Silence filled the room. The fire popped. Jonah leaned forward. "So he tried once before." "More than once, maybe," Rose said. "My car, the company vote, the rehabilitation contract, it's all connected." Jonah rubbed his temple, his jaw flexing. "He wanted control, and when you didn't bend, he decided to break you." "He almost did," she admitted, her voice low. "But not anymore." Eunice looked between them, her eyes full of something fierce and maternal. "If you're going to take on a man like that, you'd better do it smart. He's got money, influence, friends in all the wrong places." "That's why I won't go through them," Rose said. "I'm going through the media." Jonah frowned. "You sure that's the right play?" "It's the only one left," she said. "If I go public, he can't bury it. Once the story's out, the law has to act." "It's dangerous," Jonah warned. "Curtis won't go down without fighting." "He's already fighting," she said quietly. "I'm just finally hitting back." That night, after Eunice went to bed, Rose and Jonah sat on the porch. The air was bitter, their breath visible. "You ever think about leaving here?" she asked. "Every winter," he said. "But then spring comes, and I remember why I stay." "What's that reason?" "Peace," he said simply, "and the people who need it." She looked down at her hands. "You think I can find that? Peace? Not by running," he said, "but maybe by telling the truth." She studied him for a long time. "You really believe in all this healing, redemption, justice?" "I've seen worse men change," Jonah said. "But your uncle?" I don't think he's one of them. She exhaled slowly, the cold air burning her lungs. Then I guess we don't have a choice. The next morning, she contacted her old friend, Marie Linton, a lawyer turned investigative journalist based in New York. They hadn't spoken since the accident. When Marie picked up, her voice was cautious. Rose? Jesus, I thought you vanished. Not vanished, Rose said. Buried. But I've got something that needs to be unearthed. Talk to me. Rose explained everything. The accident, the guardianship, the attack, the phone. Marie listened without interruption, then said, You have evidence? Enough to ruin him. Then fly back, Marie said. We'll do this right. Press conference, documents, everything public. I can't, Rose said. I'm not ready, and it's not safe yet. Rose, this isn't a game. You're accusing a billionaire of attempted murder. I'm not accusing him, Rose said coldly. I'm proving it. After the call, she sent Marie copies of every file from the recovered phone, every video, every text. Her heart pounded as the progress bar reached 100%. When it was done, she whispered, Now it begins. 2 days later, a black SUV appeared on the dirt road again. Jonah saw it first from the porch. Company, he muttered. The car stopped near the gate, and a man in a suit stepped out. He looked corporate, expensive, and out of place in the mud. Rose joined Jonah, her pulse steady but sharp. Miss Wren, the man said, removing his sunglasses. Mr. Yarrow sends his regards. He's concerned about your well-being. Tell him to send flowers, Rose said. He thought you might say that. The man smiled thinly. He asked me to remind you that confidentiality agreements are legally binding. Talking to the press would violate yours. Jonah stepped forward, blocking the man's view of her. You should leave. And you are? The man who'll make sure she's still standing when this is over. The stranger's smile faltered. He gave a slight nod. Very well. But understand this, some truths aren't worth the cost of telling. He returned to the SUV and drove off, leaving a cloud of dust behind. Rose stared after him. He's scared, she said. Good. Scared men do desperate things, Jonah replied. Then let him. I'm done hiding. That night, she dreamed of the accident again. Metal twisting, glass breaking, the scream of tires on wet pavement. But this time, the dream ended differently. Instead of darkness, there was light, bright, blinding, and alive. When she woke, her decision felt like iron in her chest. She packed a small bag, printed copies of the files, and slipped the rest into a sealed envelope labeled for Marie. Eunice found her at the table, coffee steaming between them. You're leaving, she said. Just for a few days. I need to face him. You're sure you're ready? Rose nodded. I've been ready since the day he tried to kill me. Jonah came in quietly, leaning against the doorway. If you're going back to that city, you're not going alone. Jonah, I'm not asking, he said. You think I'd let you walk into that without backup? She wanted to argue, but his tone left no room. All right, she said finally. Then we go together. The wind howled outside, the last of autumn breaking into winter. Rose looked out at the mountains, their peaks bright with snow. When this is over, she said softly, maybe I'll finally breathe again. Jonah smiled faintly. Then let's make sure it ends right. And as the first snowflakes began to fall, they both knew the quiet between them wouldn't last. The storm was coming again, but this time, she wouldn't face it alone. The flight to New York felt like crossing into another world. The hum of the engines filled the silence between Rose and Jonah, who sat beside her, his broad frame barely fitting into the narrow seat. Outside, the clouds drifted like ghosts, white against a fading horizon. Rose's reflection stared back at her from the window, paler, harder, unrecognizable from the woman who'd left this city months ago. You okay? Jonah asked quietly. She nodded, though her stomach was tight. I thought I'd never come back here. You don't have to stay, he said. Just finish what you came for. That's the plan, she murmured. But plans, she knew, had a way of unraveling around Curtis Yarrow. When they landed, the air hit her with a wave of cold and noise, honking taxis, flashing lights, the hum of a city that never paused. The smell of asphalt and coffee made her dizzy. She hadn't realized until now how deeply Montana's silence had settled into her bones. Marie Linton was waiting for them outside the terminal, tall and sharp-eyed, her trench coat cinched tight. Rose, she said, gripping her hands. You look like hell. I've been through worse, Rose replied. "Jonah, this is Marie, one of the few people in this city I still trust." "You must be the rancher," Marie said, shaking his hand. "I read your file." "You what?" "Relax," Marie said. "I like to know who's walking into a war with my friend." They drove to Marie's office downtown, a narrow space cluttered with case files, coffee cups, and headlines tacked to the wall. A photograph of Curtis Yarrow stared down at them from one clipping, a smiling man in an expensive suit, shaking hands with a senator. Rose felt her stomach twist. "The devil always photographs well," Marie muttered. "You've got solid evidence, Rose, but this won't be easy. Curtis has reach. He'll smear you before the story even breaks." "Then we get ahead of him," Rose said. "We control the narrative." "I've already set up a press briefing," Marie said. 3 days from now, you'll present the proof yourself." Jonah frowned. 3 days gives him time to strike back. "He's right," Rose said. "He won't sit still." "Let him move first," Marie said. "Every move he makes will expose him further." That night, they stayed in a small apartment Marie had secured under Rose's maiden name. It was barely furnished, a couch, 2 beds, a city view framed by rain-slicked glass. Rose stood by the window, watching the lights ripple across the skyline. Jonah sat at the table, cleaning a scrape on his hand from the trip. "You sure you want to do this?" he asked. "It's not about wanting," she said. "It's about what's right. Sometimes those aren't the same thing." "They have to be," she said. He didn't argue. The next morning, Jonah went out for supplies while Rose and Marie went through the files again. Each piece of evidence was a nail in Curtis's coffin wire transfers, private emails, the damning messages from the recovered phone. "He can't explain this away," Marie said, tapping the screen. "But we need something visual, something that hits people in the gut. A recording, a voice." Rose's eyes widened. "The phone. There were voice memos I didn't open." They played the first one. The sound of static filled the room, followed by a familiar voice, Curtis's cool and measured. "If she talks again, make sure she doesn't walk away this time. Do you understand?" The words were clear, distinct. Marie's expression hardened. "That's it. That's our bullet. Then we fire it," Rose said. They spent the rest of the day preparing documents, setting up the digital trail, coordinating the press. By evening, Rose felt exhaustion settle into her bones. She lay on the couch, eyes closed, listening to the city below. She was on the edge of sleep when a sharp knock broke the quiet. Jonah answered it. A man in a gray suit stood in the doorway, rain glistening on his shoulders. "Delivery for Miss Wren," he said. Jonah took the envelope, but before he could question him, the man turned and disappeared down the hall. Rose sat up, uneasy. "What is it?" Jonah handed her the envelope. Her name was written in Curtis's handwriting. She opened it slowly. Inside was a single photograph Jonah walking out of the hospital in Montana, her hand on his arm and a note that read, "If you care about him, stop." Her pulse spiked. "He knows we're here," she whispered. Jonah's eyes darkened. "Then he's watching." "He's always watching," she said bitterly. "That's how he wins." "No," Jonah said. "That's how cowards survive, but he's not winning anymore." That night, neither of them slept. The next day, Marie arranged a meeting with a trusted contact at Channel 9 News to preview the evidence before the press conference. Rose insisted on going alone, not wanting Jonah to be a target again. He argued, but she stood firm. "If he's going to hit back, let him aim at me. I won't let him take you down again." "You think I'm afraid of that?" Jonah said, his voice low. "You think I came all this way to hide behind you?" "You came to help," she said softly. "And you did. Now let me finish it." He stared at her for a long moment, then finally nodded. "Just promise me you'll walk out of that room." "I promise." She didn't know if it was a lie. The meeting was at a coffee shop near Midtown, neutral and public. Rose carried only her bag and the flash drive with the recordings. The journalist, a woman named Dana Fields, greeted her warmly. "We've heard rumors," she said. "If what you have is real, it's explosive." "It's real," Rose said. They talked for an hour. Rose handed over the flash drive and went over every detail of the story. Dana promised to review the evidence that night. "This will change everything," she said. As Rose left, the rain had turned to sleet. She walked quickly toward the subway, head down, unaware of the dark sedan that had been following her since she left the apartment. A block away, the sedan stopped. A man stepped out, phone pressed to his ear. "She's alone," he said. "You want me to—" A gunshot cut through the sentence, distant but sharp. Rose spun around. People screamed. The man fell, his phone skittering into the gutter. A police siren wailed in the distance. She ran, heart hammering, until she reached a crowded corner and ducked into a pharmacy, her mind racing. Someone had silenced him. Someone on Curtis's side, but why now? When she finally returned to the apartment, Jonah was pacing. "Where the hell were you?" "He's killing his own men," she said breathlessly. "One of them followed me. He's dead." Jonah's face went grim. "Then we're out of time." Marie burst through the door moments later, her phone in hand. "The story's spreading already. Someone leaked it before the conference." "What?" Rose asked. "Who?" "Doesn't matter. It's everywhere, news feeds, social media, blogs. They're calling it the Yarrow scandal." Rose's knees weakened. "He'll come for me now." "He'll try," Jonah said. "But you're not alone this time." Outside, the city howled with the noise of sirens and rain. The truth was out, but so was the danger. For every headline exposing Curtis's crimes, there would be a shadow waiting for them. As lightning flared across the skyline, Rose looked at Jonah. "We started a fire," she said. "Good," he replied. "Now let it burn." The city never truly slept, but that night it trembled. The headlines blazed across every screen, every ticker, every whispered conversation in coffee shops and elevators. Billionaire Curtis Yarrow, accused of corporate fraud and attempted murder. Photos of him leaving his Manhattan penthouse splashed across the morning news face tight, sunglasses hiding his eyes. Rose sat on the couch in the small apartment, watching it unfold in real time, her heart pounding against her ribs. Marie was on the phone, pacing, barking orders to a producer at Channel 9. Jonah stood near the window, watching the street below, his jaw tight. "He's not running," Jonah said finally. "He's regrouping." "He'll try to spin it," Marie said, slamming the phone down. "Say you're unstable, that the accident left you delusional. He's already working the narrative. His lawyers are calling you a disgruntled ex-CEO with psychological trauma." "That sounds like him," Rose said bitterly. "Control the story, destroy the person. He's good at that," Marie said. "But this time, he's bleeding publicly. You've hit a nerve." Rose didn't answer. Her mind was already racing ahead. Curtis wouldn't just counter with words, he'd retaliate. He always did. Her phone buzzed, an unknown number. She hesitated, then answered. "Rose?" a voice said smoothly. "Curtis." The sound of his voice made her spine stiffen. "You've made quite the mess." "You mean the truth?" she said, her tone steady. "You've never been good at telling the difference," he replied. "You don't understand what you've done. You think the world cares about justice? It doesn't. It cares about spectacle. And you've just become mine. You tried to kill me," she said coldly. "And now everyone knows." "Everyone thinks they know," he said. "But I built you, Rose. You think you can destroy me with a few texts? I have judges, senators, networks. You have a cowboy and a blogger." She smiled faintly, though he couldn't see it. "You're wrong," she said. "I have something you'll never understand." "And what's that?" "People who believe me." He laughed softly, the sound hollow. "Belief doesn't last. Money does." Then the line went dead. Jonah was already beside her. "Was it him?" She nodded. "He's scared," Jonah said. "He's furious," she corrected. "And that makes him dangerous." Marie looked up from her laptop. "We have to move fast. His PR team's spinning a counter-story. They're painting Jonah as your caretaker-turned-manipulator, saying he's extorting you." "What?" Jonah barked. "They're pulling your record," Marie said. "The fire, your discharge, the investigation, everything. They're twisting it." "Let them," Rose said, her voice sharp. "They want war? They'll get it." Marie leaned back. "Then we give them something they can't bury. A visual. We go live tonight. You speak directly to the public. No editing, no filter." "A live broadcast?" Jonah asked. "That's a risk." "So is breathing around Curtis," Rose said. "Let's do it." By evening, the apartment had turned into a makeshift studio, lights, camera, microphone. Marie's team set everything up, double-checking connections while Rose rehearsed her statement. Her hands trembled once, then steadied. She wore a simple navy suit, the kind she'd worn when she ran the company, before Curtis had taken it all. Jonah stood just off camera, arms crossed, his presence grounding her. You ready? Marie asked. More than ever. The red light blinked on. Rose took a breath. My name is Rose Wren, she began, her voice calm, clear. For months, I've been silent. I was told to stay quiet, to disappear, to let others speak for me. But silence protects the powerful, and I will not be their silence anymore. She held up a document, Curtis's emails, the text messages, the transfer receipts. My uncle, Curtis Yarrow, orchestrated the accident that left me paralyzed and attempted to finish the job when I began to recover. He stole my company, my name, and nearly my life. And tonight, I'm reclaiming all three. Marie mouthed good behind the camera, encouraging her. Rose continued. This isn't about vengeance. It's about truth. Every woman, every man who's been told they're too small to fight back, this is for you. I may not walk perfectly yet, but I'm standing. She reached down and unclasped her cane, standing slowly, carefully, her leg trembling but steady. Jonah's eyes glistened off camera. I stand, she said, her voice breaking slightly, because someone believed I could. When the broadcast ended, the room erupted in noise phones, buzzing, emails flooding in. Marie's face was pale with excitement. It's everywhere, she said. Every network's running it. He can't hide from this. Jonah placed a hand on Rose's shoulder. You did it, he said quietly. No, she said. We did. But celebration was short-lived. Within an hour, the first wave of retaliation hit. News outlets sympathetic to Curtis began airing counter-interviews, calling Rose unstable, accusing Jonah of coercive influence. Then, a breaking update, a warrant had been issued for Jonah's arrest. What? Rose shouted, grabbing the remote. The news anchor's voice was cold and professional. Authorities are investigating Jonah Hale in connection with the alleged assault and property damage at Hale Ranch last month. That's insane, she said. He was defending me. They're fabricating, Marie said. Curtis must have paid someone to sign off on it. It's damage control. Jonah exhaled slowly. If they come, I'm not running. You can't just... If I run, it looks like guilt, he said. If I face it, we keep the moral ground. You're not going to jail for me, Rose said fiercely. I won't let that happen. You don't get to choose, Jonah said gently. But I do. He touched her cheek lightly. You keep fighting. That's how we both win. Before she could answer, a heavy knock sounded on the door. 3 sharp raps. Marie cursed under her breath. They're fast. Jonah straightened, his face calm. Stay behind me. Rose grabbed his arm. Jonah, please. Trust me, he said. She nodded, heart pounding. The door opened to reveal 2 men in suits, police badges gleaming. Jonah Hale, the taller one said. You're under arrest. Jonah didn't resist. For what? Marie demanded. Assault and obstruction of justice, the officer said. He didn't do anything, Rose said. Ma'am, please stand back. No, she snapped. You're making a mistake. Jonah looked at her, his expression soft but firm. It's okay. It's not, she whispered. It will be, he said. You just make sure he pays. They led him away in handcuffs, the sound of rain starting again outside. Rose stood frozen in the doorway, watching as the car disappeared down the street. The apartment felt suddenly hollow, the silence pressing in. Marie touched her arm. He knew this could happen. Then he's braver than I am, Rose said. No, Marie replied. He just knows what courage looks like when it wears your face. Rose turned back to the window. The city lights blurred through her tears. Curtis had taken everything before, but this time, he'd taken someone she cared about. She clenched her fists, the reflection of her own determined face staring back at her. You wanted a war, Curtis, she whispered. Now you have one. The morning after Jonah's arrest broke gray and silent, the kind of stillness that feels like the city is holding its breath. Rose hadn't slept. She sat at the kitchen table, the glow of her laptop casting deep shadows across her face as she scrolled through news reports. Every channel carried some version of the story, some sympathetic, most poisoned by Curtis's influence. Former CEO's unstable claims unravel, one headline read. Another, Jonah Hale, ex-firefighter turned criminal accomplice, arrested in connection to Yarrow case. Each word was a knife. Marie came in, clutching 2 cups of coffee. Her hair was disheveled, her voice low. He's being held at the 4th precinct, no bail set yet. They're rushing this, Rose. It's meant to scare you into silence. It won't, Rose said flatly. They picked the wrong woman to threaten. We can fight this, Marie said, setting down the coffee. But you have to be smart. Curtis isn't just covering his tracks, he's turning public sympathy against you. People believe what's easy, and he's selling the easier truth. Then we make the hard one louder, Rose said. She stood, pacing. We still have the recordings. The phone. If we release more— No, Marie interrupted sharply. If you flood the media now, it looks desperate. Let him overreach first. Let him get comfortable thinking he's won. Rose looked out the window. The city below was waking horns blaring, people rushing, unaware that a quiet war was being fought above their heads. Jonah's sitting in a cell because of me, she said. He wouldn't even be in this mess if he hadn't saved my life. He's where he chose to be, Marie said softly. You think he doesn't know what he's doing? The man looked death in the face and came back swinging. He can handle this. And if he can't? Rose's voice cracked. Marie's expression softened. Then we make damn sure it wasn't for nothing. At noon, Rose put on a black coat and sunglasses, blending into the crowd outside the precinct. Reporters swarmed the steps, shouting questions she ignored. Inside, the air smelled of coffee, sweat, and power. She gave her name at the desk. I'm here to see Jonah Hale. The officer looked up, recognition flickering across his face. He's in holding. You've got 10 minutes. He led her through a maze of corridors to a small room with a glass partition. Jonah sat on the other side, wearing a plain gray jumpsuit, his eyes tired but clear. When he saw her, he smiled faintly. You shouldn't have come. You knew I would, she said, taking the seat across from him. You look like hell. You should see the other guy, he joked softly. For a moment, neither spoke. Then she leaned forward. Curtis is trying to bury you. He's leaking stories, twisting everything. That's what men like him do, Jonah said. They build lies so big people mistake them for truth. I can fix this, she said. Marie and I are gathering everything, new witnesses, documents. We're going to expose him completely. You already did, Jonah said. That press conference hurt him more than you know. He's flailing now. You hit the nerve. Then why do I feel like I'm losing? She whispered. Jonah studied her, his voice soft. Because you care. And caring always feels like breaking when the world's this cruel. She pressed her hand against the glass, and after a moment he mirrored it. You told me once to keep fighting, she said. Now I'm telling you the same. You'll win this, he said. Not because you're ruthless like him, but because you're the kind of person he can't buy. The guard appeared at the door. Time's up. Jonah gave her one last look. Walk tall, Rose. She nodded, forcing herself to stand. When she stepped outside, the winter air hit her like a slap. Cameras flashed, voices shouted, but she didn't stop. She had work to do. That evening, Marie called with news. You're not going to believe this, she said. One of Curtis's former assistants just reached out, claims she has recordings, internal memos about the accident cover-up. Where is she? Rose asked. A hotel in Midtown, room 927. She's scared but willing to talk. Let's go, Rose said. They arrived after dark. The hotel was anonymous, corporate, the kind of place that promised discretion. The woman waiting inside was young, maybe late 20s, her hands trembling around a paper cup of tea. I shouldn't be here, she said. If he finds out— He already knows, Rose said. And you're not alone. The woman took a breath and slid a flash drive across the table. These are from his private server. He made me delete the originals, but I made backups, emails, call logs, payments, all of it. Why now? Marie asked. The woman hesitated. Because I saw what he did to you, and because I couldn't sleep anymore. Rose reached out, squeezing her hand. You did the right thing. The woman nodded, eyes glistening. Be careful, she whispered. He has people everywhere. When they left, the air outside was sharp and wet. Snow had begun to fall, dusting the city in a quiet, deceptive peace. They climbed into Marie's car, and Rose held the flash drive in her palm like a weapon. This is it, she said, the final nail. But as they turned the corner toward Marie's office, Rose noticed the black SUV in the rearview mirror, sleek, tinted, too familiar. Marie, she said, her voice low. We're being followed. Marie's eyes flicked to the mirror. Don't look back. Just stay calm. The SUV sped up. That's not calm, Rose muttered. Marie swerved into an alley, but the vehicle matched her move, headlights glaring through the snow. "They're not police," Marie said. "Curtis's men." "Then drive faster." Tires screeched. The streets blurred by neon lights, dark windows, rain turning to sleet. "If they get that drive." "They won't," Marie said. "Hold on." She took a hard turn onto a narrow service road, the SUV close behind. A horn blared, metal screamed. Rose gripped the door handle, her heart in her throat. "Marie!" "Almost there," Marie said through clenched teeth. But a second SUV appeared ahead, blocking the road. "No," Marie whispered. "No, no." Rose reacted before she could think. "The drive, give it to me." "What? Now?" Marie tossed it. Rose cracked the window and threw it into the storm drain beside the curb. The SUVs stopped, doors opening. Men stepped out, dark coats, purposeful movements. Marie's knuckles were white on the wheel. "Stay quiet," she said. The men approached, one tapping on the window with a gloved hand. "Ladies," he said smoothly, "Mr. Yarrow would like to have a word." "Tell him," Rose said coldly, "that he'll have to wait his turn." The man smiled. "I don't think he's the waiting type." He reached for the door. Before he could open it, Marie slammed her foot on the gas. The car jerked backward, tires spinning on the ice. Metal crunched as they rammed into the SUV behind them, then shot forward, scraping past the one in front. "Go, go, go," Rose shouted. They sped down the block, swerving into traffic. Behind them, horns blared, lights flashed, but the SUVs didn't follow, not yet. When they finally reached safety, a parking garage near the waterfront, Marie cut the engine, hands trembling. "You okay?" she asked. Rose nodded, breathless. "The drive's gone," Marie said. "We'll never get it back." "It's safe," Rose said. "They won't find it in that drain." "You sure?" "I know Curtis," she said. "He doesn't look down, only ahead." They sat in silence for a long moment, the sound of their breathing mixing with the faint hum of the city outside. Then Rose looked at Marie, her eyes burning with a quiet, relentless fire. "He thinks he's untouchable," she said. "Tomorrow, we prove he's not." Dawn crept over Manhattan like a secret, pale and slow, the city waking under a veil of cold fog. Rose stood by the window of Marie's apartment, staring down at the street far below where taxis crawled like yellow ants. She hadn't slept. Her hands trembled slightly as she poured coffee, the echoes of last night still flickering behind her eyes, the chase, the black SUVs, the sound of metal screaming in the storm. Marie entered, her hair damp from the shower, dark circles shadowing her sharp eyes. "You should sit," she said. "You've been standing there for hours." "I can't," Rose replied. "Jonah's still in jail, Curtis is closing in, and we just threw our only evidence into a drain." "We'll get it back," Marie said. "I called a contact at the city sanitation department. We can access the storm grid this morning, but it has to be quiet. No police, no press." "Then we go now," Rose said, already pulling on her coat. The streets were slick with ice as they drove toward the East River district, where the city's storm runoff emptied into the sewers. The air smelled of metal and salt. A maintenance worker, short and thick-shouldered, met them by a locked gate. "You're the journalist?" he asked Marie. She nodded. "This is my associate. We just need 10 minutes down there." "You got 5, the man said, handing her a flashlight. "And watch your step, rats the size of cats down there." The tunnel was dark and slick, the echo of dripping water following their footsteps. Rose's heart pounded. She focused the beam on the grate ahead, remembering the exact spot where she'd tossed the flash drive. It should be here. Marie knelt beside the drain, shining her light through the bars. "There's something stuck." Rose crouched beside her, straining to reach through the gap. Her fingers brushed metal. "Got it." She pulled, the small silver drive emerging slick with grime but intact. For a moment, she just stared at it in her hand, heart pounding. "This little thing," she whispered. "It's everything." "Then let's get out before someone decides to check what we're doing," Marie said. They climbed back into the cold morning light, locking the gate behind them. Marie took the drive, wrapping it in a plastic evidence bag. "We'll make copies, send them to every outlet we trust. If Curtis tries to shut one down, 10 more will have it." "And Jonah?" Rose asked. "We'll clear his name, I promise," Marie said. "But first, we have to end Curtis." They drove to a small newsroom Marie sometimes freelanced for, a place too small for Yarrow's money to have reached. Inside, A handful of young journalists crowded around as they transferred the drive's contents to a secure server. Emails, transactions, memos. He left a trail a mile wide, one of them said. This is gold. Rose leaned against the desk, exhaustion pressing on her bones. We release it today. He'll retaliate immediately, Marie warned. Good, Rose said. Let him burn faster. That afternoon, the story exploded again, this time bigger, louder, unstoppable. News anchors read aloud Curtis's own words, his voice caught on tape directing the cover-up, ordering payments, planning the accident that had nearly killed her. Footage of his penthouse flashed across every channel, his company's stock plummeting in real time. Rose watched in silence, tears slipping down her cheeks, not of grief this time, but relief. He can't come back from this, Marie said quietly. He's done. But victory came with a price. An hour later, her phone rang. Unknown number. She hesitated, then answered. A gravelly voice said, "We have your cowboy." Rose froze. "Who is this?" "He's fine. For now. If you want him to stay that way, you'll come alone. Pier 46. Midnight." The line went dead. Marie saw her face pale. What happened? "They have Jonah," she said, her voice hollow. "Curtis's people. You can't go alone, Rose. They said if I bring anyone, they'll kill him." "They'll kill him anyway," Marie said sharply. "That's how men like Curtis operate." "Then I'm not giving him the satisfaction," Rose said. "I'm ending this." She grabbed her coat. "Call the press. Get them ready for morning. If I don't come back, you run the story again everywhere." "Rose, promise me." Marie hesitated, then nodded. "I promise." The night came heavy and cold. The city glittered under a sickly orange sky as Rose walked along the waterfront. The wind cut through her coat, sharp as blades. The pier loomed ahead, abandoned except for a few flickering lights and the black silhouette of a car. Jonah was there, tied to a chair, blood on his lip but eyes burning steady. Curtis stood beside him, immaculate as ever in a dark coat, the picture of control. "Rose," he said, his voice smooth. "I was hoping you'd come." "Let him go," she said. "You've got what you wanted, the attention, the chaos. It's over." "No," he said. "You made it over. I'm just writing the ending." "You think killing me will fix this?" she said. "The evidence is out. Everyone knows. Everyone forgets," he replied. "Money has a way of rewriting memory." He turned slightly, his eyes cold. "You should have stayed gone. I gave you a chance to live quietly." "You tried to kill me," she said. "You tried to destroy Jonah. That's not quiet. That's cowardice." Curtis's jaw tightened. "I built everything you had." "No," she said softly. "You built a lie. I built myself." He moved toward her, voice low. "You think people will remember you as a hero? They'll remember you as broken, damaged, the crippled woman who bit the hand that fed her." "Maybe," she said, stepping closer, "but at least I bit back." Behind him, Jonah stirred. "Rose," he rasped. "Don't." But it was already happening. A shout cut through the night, police lights flashing suddenly across the pier. Marie had called them after all. Curtis spun, eyes wild. "You stupid!" Jonah lunged, knocking the gun from his hand. It skidded across the dock, clattering into the dark water below. Officers poured in, shouting commands. Curtis was tackled to the ground, his hands twisting in fury as they cuffed him. "You'll regret this," he screamed. Rose ran to Jonah, untying his hands. "Are you okay?" "I've had better days," he said, managing a faint grin. "But I'm standing, aren't I?" She laughed, tears streaming down her face. "Yeah," she said softly. "You are." As the police dragged Curtis away, his face twisted in rage and disbelief, Rose felt something heavy lift from her chest. The air tasted different, clean, alive. For the first time in years, she wasn't surviving someone else's war. She was free. Jonah looked at her, his expression warm despite the bruises. "Told you you'd win." "No," she said. "We did." He smiled, glancing toward the skyline where the first hint of dawn broke through. "You ever think about going home?" She followed his gaze. "I don't think I ever had one," she said quietly. "Until now." The sirens faded into the distance, leaving only the sound of the wind over the river. Rose took Jonah's hand, squeezing it tightly. "Let's go home," she said, and together they walked into the pale light of morning, the city behind them, the mountains waiting far ahead. The morning sun stretched over the Montana Valley like liquid gold, melting the last of the snow that clung stubbornly to the fence posts. Weeks had passed since that night at the pier, since Curtis Yarrow was dragged away in handcuffs, his empire collapsing behind him like a dying star. The world had changed, but out here, the world was exactly the same. The wind still carried the scent of pine and hay, and the horses still stirred before dawn, hungry and restless. Rose stood at the edge of the paddock, the crutch now resting in the dirt beside her, forgotten. She took one careful step, then another. Her leg trembled but held. The scar was still there, a reminder etched deep into her skin, but it no longer defined her. It was just a line in the story, not the ending. From the barn, Jonah watched her silently, a faint smile tugging at his lips. He'd healed too slowly, stubbornly, like the land itself after a long winter. The bruises had faded, but the fire in his eyes remained. "You're getting faster," he called out. She turned, sweat glistening on her temple. "You sound surprised." "I'm impressed," he said, leaning on the doorframe. "There's a difference." "Not much," she said, smiling faintly. He chuckled, stepping closer. "You still planning to head back to New York?" She shook her head. "No. The board asked, the lawyers begged, but I'm done with that life. The company will survive without me. It's time I started living something real." Jonah studied her, the way the morning light framed her hair, the way strength had replaced the fragility he'd first seen in her. "You could stay here," he said quietly. "You'd fit right in." She tilted her head. "You mean mucking stalls and chasing horses in the cold?" "You'd complain less than most," he said. "That's the highest compliment you'll ever get from me." "I'll take it," she said, laughing softly. They stood there for a long moment, the silence between them full and unhurried. In the distance, Eunice emerged from the farmhouse, waving a dish towel. "You two planning to talk all morning or actually eat breakfast?" "You heard the boss," Jonah said. "Let's move before she comes out here with that wooden spoon." "I'd pay to see that," Rose said, following him toward the house. Inside, the kitchen was alive with warmth, the smell of biscuits, coffee, and something sweet baking in the oven. Eunice poured them both mugs of coffee and shook her head. "You look better, girl, stronger." "That's because I have the best therapist this side of the Rockies," Rose said, glancing at Jonah. "Don't go flattering me," Eunice said. "He already thinks he's God's gift to stubborn women," Jonah smirked. "Only the ones worth saving." Rose felt her cheeks warm but said nothing. After breakfast, she stepped outside again, the wide blue sky stretching endlessly overhead. In the distance, the river shimmered like silver thread winding through the valley. She could hear the horses moving in the paddock, their hooves thudding softly against the earth. It felt different now, peaceful, but not empty. She'd come here broken, hiding from a world that had taken everything. Now she stood tall, unafraid, with the sun on her face, and a life that finally felt like her own. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. A message from Marie. "Curtis pleaded guilty this morning. Multiple charges. He'll never walk free again. Thought you'd want to know." Rose stared at the screen for a moment, then exhaled slowly. It was over. Truly over. No more threats, no more shadows. Just silence, clean and wide as the sky above. She walked toward the corral where Grace, the mare who'd once tested her balance and courage, grazed quietly near the fence. Rose stroked the animal's neck, whispering softly, "We made it, didn't we?" The horse nudged her shoulder in response. Jonah approached, his boots crunching on the gravel. "News from New York?" "Curtis pled guilty," she said. "It's done." He nodded, his expression unreadable. "That's good." "It is," she said, glancing at him. "You don't sound convinced." "I just know endings aren't really endings. They're beginnings pretending to be polite." She smiled at that. "Then what's our beginning?" Jonah looked out over the valley. "You tell me. You're the one who traded skyscrapers for cattle." "I think I made the right trade," she said softly. He turned to face her. "You sure about that? The city might still need its warrior. Let someone else fight those battles. I've had enough wars." "So what now?" "Now," she said, taking a step closer, "I learn how to live." He smiled, a real one this time, quiet and deep. "That I can help with." "I thought you'd say that." The wind picked up, carrying the scent of hay and rain. For a moment the world seemed perfectly still, balanced on the edge of something new. "You know," Jonah said, looking toward the horizon, "when you first got here, I didn't think you'd last a week. Neither did I, she said. But you were wrong. Not the first time, he admitted. Probably won't be the last. I'll make sure of it, she teased. He laughed, the sound warm and full. You planning to keep me on my toes, huh? Someone has to, she said, her voice softening. Otherwise, you'll just hide behind your horses forever. He met her gaze, and in that quiet exchange, something unspoken settled between them, something steady, real, and enduring. The kind of bond forged not from rescue or gratitude, but from survival and choice. As the sun climbed higher, they began walking toward the barn together, side by side. Eunice's laughter drifted from the porch, the smell of fresh bread wafting through the air. Rose glanced back once, at the house, the fields, the life that had found her when she wasn't looking. She'd come here a broken thing, a ghost of a woman who'd lost her voice, her faith, her purpose. Now she was whole again. Not perfect, not untouched, but alive in every way that mattered. Jonah, she said as they reached the barn. Yeah? Thank you. For what? For seeing me when I couldn't see myself. He paused, his eyes meeting hers. That's what people do when they care. And you do? She asked quietly. He smiled, slow and certain. More than I should. She didn't look away. Good, she said simply. Inside the barn, the world smelled of hay and sunlight, of work and renewal. It wasn't glamorous, it wasn't easy, but it was home. For the first time, she felt like she was exactly where she was meant to be. Outside, the valley stretched endlessly, the sound of the wind carrying through the fields a promise, a whisper, a prayer. Rose turned to Jonah and said, "Let's get to work." He nodded, picking up a rake. "Yes, ma'am." As they fell into rhythm, side by side, the world around them came alive, the horses snorting softly, the sky wide and forgiving, the land humming with quiet strength. It wasn't the ending she had imagined all those months ago. It was better. It was real. And for Rose Wren, that was everything. The story of Rose Wren teaches a profound lesson about resilience, integrity, and the quiet strength of justice. Though she was betrayed, stripped of her dignity, and nearly lost everything, she chose to rise not for revenge, but to reclaim her sense of self. Her journey reminds us that true power is not found in retaliation, but in the courage to stand for truth even when facing corruption and cruelty. Like Rose, we all fall, but it's not the fall that defines us, it's how we rise, with courage, compassion, and the unshakable belief that light always finds its way to those who refuse to surrender to darkness.